what dying on every drug feels like.
Incident. Shrooms are a natural psychedelic that cause hallucinations. About 30 minutes after eating them, colors get brighter, patterns start crawling on the walls, time stretches like taffy, and your sense of self begins to melt. Your brain is rushed into a state of euphoria, leaving you questioning what's real and what's not. But what happens when you take too much? On a calm Saturday afternoon, a 21-year-old Hispanic man would return home from work and consume an unspecified quantity of shrooms. Shortly after consumption, he started experiencing a bad trip and begun acting erratically upon arriving.
Ooh, he went into an alternate universe in his head. In his head, he wasn't on that road no more. He was far from that road. Hey, that road is the last thing on his mind in that moment.
His stepfather and brother would step in and restrain him to try to calm him down, but he'd break free of their grasp and also break a glass vase in the process.
Oh,
in his frenzied state, he'd then begin to rub himself against the glass shards on the floor and severely injure his arms and legs.
Why? That's an overly bad trip at that. You're lost in the head at that.
His brother and stepfather would successfully intervene to stop him from injuring himself any further with the glass shards, and he'd be sat down at a desk. But shockingly enough, in a horrific act, he'd take a number 2 pencil that was laying on the desk, stand it upright, and repeatedly smash his head on the sharpened pencil.
Oh my God.
When he
Oh my God. Oh my God. And that's coming from the drawing. That still felt crazy.
Raised his head, he'd reveal that he jabbed the pencil repeatedly into both of his eye sockets.
He just blessed.
He would stand up again to do something else, but quickly vomited on himself, leaving his family in a state of total panic. Emergency services were called, where they tried desperately to save the young man's life, but unfortunately, they would only get so far. Shrooms are one of the least toxic substances in the world. You'd need to eat dozens or even hundreds of grams to fatally overdose. But that doesn't mean people can't die from it. Most fatalities come from behavioral toxicity.
From being
panicking,
an idiot.
Jumping out windows, walking into traffic,
that comes from being
or doing
an
something
idiot.
fatal during a full-blown psychotic break. You won't pass away from the drug itself. You'll pass away from what it does to your mind. The Gator incident. Now let's talk about meth. When it hits, you feel invincible. This substance cranks up your sympathetic nervous system and causes an explosive release of dopamine in your body. Your heart starts racing, you become laser focused, and you'll be filled with unstoppable energy. The high can last 8 to 16 hours. No sleep, no food, just intense stimulation. And when you take too much, your body turns into an absolute war zone. On May 26th, in Orlando, Florida, concerned bystanders would phone a call to police officers to let them know that there was a man on a racetrack shaking violently, asking to see his son. When police arrived, he was nowhere to be found, until suddenly he was located in a lake, full of alligators. Officers would try to throw the man a life vest, but he'd refuse it and would start getting attacked by the alligators in the water. And to officers' surprise, like it was a scene straight out of a horror movie, the man actually resurfaced out of the lake, covered in severe injuries and carrying gardening shears. He would charge at the officers in their car, and in response, they would tase him repeatedly, but it would have absolutely no effect. It was only when the man jumped into the passenger seat of the police cruiser and tried reaching for a rifle in the vehicle that officers finally used lethal force.
Oh, they blessed her.
Hijacks your brain's reward system and sends your body into overdrive. It burns out your dopamine center and disrupts your central nervous system so much that your body both loses touch with reality and can no longer regulate its temperature. Your organs can literally cook from the inside out and cause you to collapse. You can have a heart attack, or you could simply just go on a rampage and meet an early demise like this man. The 108th incident. Weed is by far one of the most commonly used substances in the United States.
I don't know how you can die.
Within minutes of smoking, you're relaxed, music sounds better, jokes are funnier, and you get really, really hungry. You might feel euphoric, or anxious, or both. It depends on the strain, your mood, and your brain chemistry. So what happens when you smoke too much of it? Well, here's the truth. You can't die from THC toxicity alone. There's no known lethal dose in humans. You'd have to smoke thousands of joints in a short time to even come close. But that doesn't mean it's harmless. In the spring of 2018 in California, a woman who had just befriended a man at a dog park she frequently visited would follow him home to his apartment for a quick spark-up session, which, mind you, is totally legal in the state of California. After the two finished lighting up grass through a bong, the woman would unexpectedly shoot up from her seat straight to the kitchen and grab 3 knives.
Hey, could you come back with some chips? And maybe some ice cream.
She's the one to do this. This has her, whatever she does after this has nothing to do with weed. This is just her motive and what she wanted to do to begin with. This has nothing to do with weed. Whatever
And
she
maybe some
probably
chicken
did has nothing to do. Oh.
Are you trying to chop up some salsa? I love salsa.
Jim, I'm not making salsa.
In just the blink of an eye, she would stab the man repeatedly non-stop 108
This had nothing to do with weed. Nah, that's not how that works.
times. His body would be covered in marks from head to toe, and his face would nearly be
That means
entirely
that
carved out.
That means she
Officers that
wanted to
arrived
do
at the
this to
scene
begin
would
with.
find that she had also stabbed her dog, and shockingly enough, had stabbed herself 40 times, and was still in the process of doing it. They would quickly intervene and try to physically stop her, but it wasn't enough. Officers would tase her 4 times to try to break her psychotic frenzy, but it would be to no avail. In order to get her to stop, one police officer had to swing a baton at her arm 9 times to break it, and finally she would release her grip from the knife. The man unfortunately didn't make it, but surprisingly, the woman did. And even more shockingly, she faced 0 prison time for her actions because it was proven in court that she experienced what is commonly known as cannabis-induced psychosis.
So you can dead ass over. So this is interesting. Some people who use marijuana may experience acute symptoms of psychosis, including paranoia, delusion, disorganized thinking, or even hallucinations. It's not very common, but cannabis-induced psychosis can be very serious and may need to be treated. Most cases of psychosis related to cannabis acute and temporary. But it's like, I feel like that's part of it. That still is like a
The woman was
motive of
very
her
inexperienced when it came to smoking weed, and that potentially played a
That was a
huge
motive
role
of her
in why
own.
she experienced this rare phenomenon.
Nah.
She was placed on probation for 2 years and was required to do 100 hours of community service.
That
The
was a
man's
motive.
family,
She wanted to do
especially
that.
his father, were extremely upset when they heard about this.
She
Understandably
wanted
so.
to do
It
that.
should never have happened. She should have never have been allowed to walk free. She should have done some time. You know, you had
No,
a
for
jury
real,
that
bro. What
convicted
the
her.
world? She
a
did that.
unanimous conviction in less
I
than
don't care what. I don't care what them science stats say. She wanted to do that. She wanted to do that. There's no. Screw what them stats say. Screw what the psychosis say. It's still a piece of your brain that said I wanted to do that.
4 hours, and the judge went completely against all 3 of those entities and just said, "You're free to go."
The stove. YouTube really didn't like the case on ecstasy that I found, so instead, we'll go over this situation where a 26-year-old martial arts fighter and his sparring partner consumed an unnatural amount of shrooms while in their apartment.
Okay.
Initially, everything was fine, until they became convinced that the world was coming to an end and that the two were fighting a battle of life and death between God and the devil. The two
Okay.
would begin their legendary battle, and finally when the struggle finished, their friend would walk into their apartment room only to find the martial arts fighter standing butt naked in the kitchen cooking his friend's heart and
Damn.
remains in a stove.
There's no way to act. There's no way.
The victim would be found laying on the couch, missing his face, tongue, and heart.
There's no way.
And
to
sadly, the autopsy revealed that he was alive when his chest was ripped open and his heart was taken out. The martial arts fighter wouldn't be as lucky as the woman in our...
He got genuinely blessed. There's no other way to put that, chat. There's no other way to put that. On the couch. No heart.
last case. He'd be formally charged and sentenced to 47 years in state prison for what he did to his friend. Now, this probably makes the US legal system come off as a little hypocritical, considering that in the other case, the woman was allowed to blame psychosis for her actions
Right.
and be cleared of any severe wrongdoing, whereas in this case, the fighter's state of influence was ignored and he was directly sentenced. But honestly, that's your opinion to make. When it comes to overdosing on psilocybin, you'll find that it rarely ever ends you through toxicity alone. You'll need to eat an absurd amount for that to actually happen. The real danger is psychosis, panic, and delusion, Once you compromise the healthiness and security of your mind for a quick burst of excitement, you'll find that that's where things go haywire. So in other words, don't do drugs. Have a happy day.
I guess. We just sat there and talked about drugs just for this man to have dogs in the back in the end of the video. Hey man, if y'all like this type of content, like, comment, subscribe, follow the Twitch if you haven't, man. Otherwise, I'm finna get out this joint, man. Peace.